Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a Stabby Chaos Coordinator, and one Chief Shenanigator, geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Forrest Jones, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers at home.
All right. Hey, I'm Forrest Jones. I'm a new author. I'm also a new father. Well, kind of 4 kids. I live in the Rochester, New York area, and I love all things nerdy.
Okay. Kids keep you busy, so that's no joke. And we're gonna get this out of the way, dear listener, just so we don't forget. But if you start looking for Forrest Jones and you find the Forrest Jones that wrote The Placebo and only has that book out, that is not him. Apparently, there are 2 Forrest Jones, but the other guy's the imitator. This is the real one. Unless the other guy wants to come on, and when we interview him, you'll be the imitator. But I'm an equal opportunist.
Well,
okay.
So I have 3 books out. So I have so it's Forrest Jones, The Lost Prince is one book, and then Revenge of Inzrai is the second book. So I have 3 books on my page for, and then there's Origins. So if people you said that other Forrest Jones had 1 book. So I have 3. So that might help people figure out who I am.
Sounds good. All right. With that out of the way, before we get too deep into this episode, we do have to do the religion questions. Are you ready for this?
I hope so.
Yeah. All right. So, Stargate, Babylon 5, or Battlestar Galactica, since you answered the other ones the last time you were on.
Definitely Stargate, 100%. Watching it right now. Loving it. Almost too much. Loving it, though.
I absolutely loved it. Which are you watching? SG-1, the movie, Atlantis, Universe, the cartoon?
So actually, my wife started with the movie, and I loved it. And then now we're doing SG-1. I'm about 9 seasons into it, and I love. It's an incredible show. I could go into it for forever, but I'm just the depth of the characters, the stories. I actually want to make a character like Teal'c because his characters are so unique. I just love his indeed, that's like the way he talks, his mannerisms, all of it's really cool. So
yeah, he's a fun character. The whole series, I love all of it though. So
yeah, and I think next we're gonna watch Atlantis, just because I don't think. I mean, my wife's seen parts of it, but yeah. So that's definitely my thing of choice is Stargate.
So are you gonna dive into SGU? Some people love it, some people hate it. I'm in the I loved it camp, and I hate that they didn't give me an ending.
Really? I mean, I probably will. It just depends on, because I find that for some reason I'm never really disappointed whenever I pick my wife's TV choices. Like, I'll try to pick something and I'm like, this sucked. But then I pick something my wife likes and I'm like, this was so good. Like Farscape. I love Farscape. I love seeing that some of the people from Farscape are now in Stargate. It's just fun to see that. So I usually just watch whatever she wants because she watches pretty good stuff.
Happy House and all that. All right. So, because we're polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, the never-ending story, the Dark Crystal or Labyrinth.
See, that's tough because I've seen all of those. The Dark Crystal, not really. It's too dark, really, really dark. The Labyrinth, of course. I mean, the Labyrinth is great because who doesn't love David Bowie being David Bowie? But I guess never-ending story just because it's so unique. I'd have to go with that one. Never-ending story, definitely.
Okay. Never-ending story, you can't go wrong with that one. It's also a good one. There is really no wrong answer there. So, all right. So last time we talked about your favorite dinosaur, so now we're going to mix it up a little bit. What is your favorite zoo animal?
Oh, I always like the monkeys because I kind of can relate to the monkeys. But
The band or
specifically,
the animals? Hey, it's the
huh?
monkeys.
Well, so as a baby, I looked like an orangutan because I had like flaming orange hair. And so I've always been fond of the monkeys, but my favorite is the Komodo dragon. Every time we go to the zoo and I see a Komodo dragon, I really like seeing such a beast of a creature.
Are you talking about anything ever?
Real dragons are nice.
Yeah.
I've heard from people that have pets that they are incredibly difficult
Really?
to keep healthy as pets.
Well, also, I mean, the fact that they could eat you is pretty startling too. One bite from them, and you get a bacterial infection from their teeth that can just immediately start, eating away at your skin, and so there's that too.
Now, I didn't know that were that dangerous. I just know people that have kept those kinds of animals as pets.
Yeah,
But then
well,
again, people keep weird things that are dangerous as pets all the time. So
that's very true. Weird attractions. They made it a TV show, But I guess technically, if they're pets, they actually don't have the flesh-eating bacteria in their mouth because they're not fed rotting flesh like they are in the wild. They're fed, good stuff. So I guess technically they're not quite as dangerous in that regard.
well, that is good to know because I would hate to have my flesh rot off.
Yeah, and they're wicked fast too. Like they can pretty much outrun a human. They can, and the funniest part is like in the wild, if they bite an animal, they don't even have to they can just bite it. Even if the animal gets away, they know it's gonna die, and so they'll go after it eventually. They just bite. Oh, I got away. Okay, whatever.
They just follow at a leisure pace. You can die or you can run. You'll just die tired.
Yeah, exactly. So they're pretty cool.
Okay. All right. And because this is the Blasters and Blades podcast and we are civilized human beings, we are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. I'm going to ask you, sir, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
I don't drink coffee or tea. However, I usually like Coca-Cola. I'm a big Coca-Cola fan. And I suppose every once in a while I'll have an herbal tea or something.
Okay. Coke trumps Pepsi. I said what I said, people.
Amen, dude. Absolutely.
Diet Coke. I love it. I actually don't even drink it because it's no calories. I prefer Diet Coke over regular Coke because it's not as sweet.
Yeah. I've only recently I've heard you can lose weight on Diet Coke or something. So I've been drinking a little bit more.
So actually, the danger with the Diet Coke when it comes to dieting is something my doctor warned me about. Is the way it breaks down the artificial sweeteners and the artificial sugar that it uses. It converts it into something that makes your body crave bread, which and then bread, of course, makes you gain weight because gluten. But I like bread anyway. So I mean, if it makes me crave bread, I can't tell a difference from my default normals. So I just rock with it. You could keep all the chocolate and the candy. Just give me some bread, and I'm good to go. Not necessarily the same kind. I like to mix it up with the various kinds of breads.
Yeah, interesting.
So, is that something you guys do a lot of? Because you see all the sourdough stuff comes out of the New York area. Are you seeing a lot of that where you live, locally with the restaurants and stuff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's lots of good sourdough places.
Artisanal is, I think, what they call it nowadays.
We recently discovered this little kind of French American restaurant. Oh man, if you like bread, dude, salted bread is so good. They have this sandwich. I think it's I want to say it's a ham and cheese or something, and it's on sourdough bread, but the bread is toasted and salted. I was like, I didn't know bread could taste this good. It was so good.
Have you ever tried bread pudding?
Yeah, my wife makes it all the time.
It's so freaking good.
Yeah, she makes bread pudding all the time. It's one of her favorite things.
I approve of her already. She can stay.
Hey,
When the zombies come, I'll make room at Fort Handley for her. If you guys can all come, as long as she makes the bread pudding, we can ride out the end of the world.
she'd happily do it. She'd do it. She says it's easy enough to make. So
I have not mastered the art of bread yet, but I've been learning to make some good soups, and the crock pot when you're learning to cook is your friend. So
yeah, she's also managed to make some pretty good sourdough English muffins. They're really good.
Oh, I wouldn't
Yeah,
have thought of that combination. Sounds interesting.
yeah. She hasn't quite mastered the bread part of it yet. But
I've seen people mix sourdough and cornbread for some reason, which I have not tasted. I've just seen people make muffins on, like, because I watch a lot of YouTube videos on the cooking shows, and then I take notes. That's how I've been getting some healthy, recipe substitutes that I've been learning. And they did that one, but I don't know. It seems like a weird flavor combination for me. So I don't know that I'd try it once, but I don't know that I'm going to spend the ingredients to make it. So
yeah. She'll put a little bit of her sourdough starter in pancakes, just so it doesn't go to waste. Because I'm not sure the whole process, but she uses some of the excess to. Anyway, so yeah, she's working on that, and then you can use sourdough. There's a lady at the farmer's market. She makes strictly sourdough, but it's like she makes like sourdough cake, sourdough muffins, sourdough bread. She makes everything sourdough, and I didn't even know you can make sourdough sweet. So
I did not either, but now I'm going to have to see about my local farmer's market. We generally go there in season to get like fresh vegetables and stuff, but I haven't looked to see if they sell like when they have vendors come out for that. So, all right. So, how did you first get into like speculative fiction? Like you've written now three fantasy novels in various subgenres of fantasy. So how did you discover all things speculative fiction? Like, were you just raised up reading it, or did you discover it later?
Yeah, actually, I loved reading fantasy. Sorry. I read Goosebumps as well growing up as a kid. Loved Goosebumps. But I was never a big horror fan, so I know Goosebumps isn't horror technically, but I loved all things fantasy. I mean, I read Harry Potter. I grew up on Lord of the Rings. I loved Lord of the Rings so much. I would literally play it on my CD player with my headphones, and I'd go to sleep with it. Like, I memorized the music. I can know, like, so Lord of the Rings was a huge thing. I've always loved fantasy, like, since I can remember. And then when I was 12, I decided, you know what, I'm going to write my own fantasy book just for fun. And I listened to Lord of the Rings, and then I started writing the book. As the music dictated, I would change the mood based on the music. And then I had about 4 notebooks done, maybe even 6. And then I put it away, came back to it like 10 years later, and I was like, bro, this is actually pretty decent. And then I found out that I'd kind of lost that part of myself. I kind of shut it down, just because I got made fun of as a kid for sword fighting and, being in my own little world. But as soon as I unlocked that fantasy part of me again, my wife says I got cooler, but I was able to relate to people better. It was just a big part of who I am. Like, I love fantasy. I love the dragons. I love magic. I love anything to do with fantasy, really. And I found out fantasy and fiction are different. So I love strictly. I mean, I can do a little bit of fiction, but I like that you can create anything with fantasy. Like, any kind of world you want, you can put it into fantasy.
Oh, it would help if I unmute myself. When it comes to fantasy, I've got a dog that sometimes barks. I've gotten in the habit of muting. So when it comes to fantasy, are there any specific themes or tropes that you prefer?
Not really. I just like good stories. I don't really care what's in the stories. as long as it's a good story. Like I don't like unnecessary real world swearing, because it takes me away from the fantasy world that the authors are trying to build. But as far as tropes, I don't really have anything I don't like, because I've written several. I've used some of those tropes in my writing, and I think like the whole enemies to lovers thing is a trope. But I have a book that I'm writing where that's like a whole. It was unplanned, but just that's part of the story. Just it's not like a romantasy. I don't like romantasy, but it's just part of the story. I don't know if that answered the question.
So you don't really have a preference necessarily, other than what you don't like, which is when your fantasy brings too much of modern Earth into it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like, for example, Harry Potter, it was written in modern world, just in a different universe, kind of a thing. That's okay. But like some of these authors, like if J.R.R. Tolkien had included some real life swear words in his books, it would have I would have hated it, because he worked so hard to create this world, and then you see some modern words like Game of Thrones. I actually tried to read Game of Thrones because I was like, okay, it can't be as bad as the TV show. It can't. It is. It's just as bad as I couldn't get through the first book without on some very adult themes and some other things. I was like, this is stupid. So that kind of stuff is like, if you're going to spend that much time creating this amazing world, just don't put in modern stuff. And George R. R. Martin is, at least in the TV show, constantly uses like the F-bomb and stuff. And I'm like, that's absolutely stupid. They did not speak that way. And if they did, it didn't have the same meaning it did back then.
Okay. Do you mind if they make up words for the universe for cursing, or do you just not want any cursing?
No, that's totally okay, because I do that myself. I've created my own curse words. That's absolutely 100% okay, because people swear. they exclaim things. You get frustrated and flustered, and absolutely that's totally okay. Like Bilbo in The Hobbit, he would say "confustus." Oh, confustus. It's a fun little word. But yeah, I do that stuff all the time. So that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I think the general rule for swearing is for it to be appropriate to the culture. Even if you change it, it's religiously oriented, it's bodily fluid or waste oriented, are the two, or body part so basically potty humor, body humor, and against whatever the gods are the three venues that cursing is. Sure. And so, what we say, like, the old Catholic one, Jesus, Moses, Joseph, and Mary. Like, well, if they don't have any context of the Catholic Church, are they going to say that? Probably not.
Exactly.
They wouldn't know who Joseph was.
Exactly.
And so, like, if you're going to make up curse words, you kind of keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Although I will say, a very few of them will translate just because you're still writing in English, even if they're not in modern U.S. or England or whatever. So some will translate, but just not all of them.
Yeah.
But it is fun sometimes. Like, did you ever watch Firefly?
I think I've seen parts of it, but that's another one that I need to watch. That sure I know my wife would love, because she loves Nathan
Fillion.
Yeah.
So
Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, where they actually use cuss words. They just had them speaking into cuss words in Mandarin. Now, part of that was to get around the TV censorship, but like that kind of stuff works because it creates an otherness to the universe, which kind of can suck you in. It makes it feel more other, and that's good when you're not here. Like, you want it not to feel like here if it's not here.
Exactly.
It seems a lot of reductiveness, but it is what it is. Do you have a certain kind of like subgenre that you prefer when it comes to reading? Like, is it dark fantasy? You said no romantasy, so.
Yeah, I cannot do smut. I cannot do romantasy. I'm like, don't do that. But no, I've actually been reading a lot of thrillers and even some horror, just because I want to get better at writing darker things too, because I've noticed that sometimes your stories can go dark, but if you don't know how to eloquently write that and communicate that, I just find it bothers me. So I read quite a bit of different thrillers, and it was fun. Honestly, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the pacing. I enjoyed the writing, and it just kind of added stuff to my writing. I know Brandon Sanderson does it a lot. He reads everything, every genre, doesn't matter what, just because it adds to his writing, whether it's words or emotions or things of that nature.
So have you read any Joe Abercrombie? He writes a lot of dark fantasy.
I have not, but I've heard a ton about him. I actually I had a mentor author who he was telling me if I like really good visual descriptive wordage, he said Joe Abercrombie is the best when it comes to like describing those kinds of things. So
he writes a lot of imperfect characters. So I tried to read it. It was a little too dark for me. It was like, wait, I'm supposed to be rooting for this person?
Okay.
But I mean, I tend not to read stuff that dark anyway. So I was only doing it because it was like a book club situation.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't yet committed to Stephen King, just because. However, I might want to start reading his biggest book series, The Dark Tower, just because I like the lore of The Dark Tower, just how all that stuff's connected, and I've heard the movie sucked, and so I've heard that the books are way better, and so but I'm just really picky with that, just because I know that some of his stuff is super dark, but his movies don't scare me, which is interesting. But then I haven't read. I think there was, I forget the ladies, but there was another book. It was called Hunted. It was a really good it was a really good thriller. And I read like 2 or 3 of her books, because she was like an easy jump into horror. And then I read, I think it's like The House or something that my sister recommended. And that was more of like a religious book, like a religious kind of focus, but it was written by Ted Decker and one other guy, and that was very horror. It was like a skewed view on religion, turned horror. So I've read some of those stuff too, and that book got pretty dark at times, but it all kind of enhanced everything. So
that's fair. I read to escape the demons, so I don't need to give them more fodder.
that is fair.
I don't mind dark things happening, but when that's the whole purpose of the genre, just not for me. But I won't yuck somebody else's yum. So for people that like it, I mean, like rock on. And I get for some people like that have similar traumas to me, it's cathartic to read that kind of stuff, and that's okay too. But I just prefer a kind of the classic good and evil and uplifting thing. Like, not to say can't get dark and bad guys can't win some, but at the end of the day, I like it to be aspirational.
Absolutely, dude. I get it 100%. Which is why I'm really picky. Like, I tried to read Dracula, the Bram Stoker. It's a journal entry, man. I was like, no, bro, I can't do this. And I tried I'm Legend. I couldn't do it. Super depressing, very boring.
What about Frankenstein? What about Frankenstein?
Oh, I read Frankenstein as a kid in high school. We had to read that. So I couldn't even tell you. I mean, I'd probably still read it now just because, I mean, it's a classic. So I've thought about reading like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but I haven't done that yet.
Any of the Lovecraft stuff?
No, I have. Oh, well, I think I briefly read like a few poems when we were studying Lovecraft in college or something, but no, I haven't read any Lovecraft. I know he can get pretty freaky.
Yeah, I like some of what he created, but I don't like his prose. I have found, because I have read his original stuff, I like what people did with his work when he made it open to the public. And I don't know if that just happened because it was old and they started doing it, or if he let it happen in his lifetime. but whatever. I prefer a lot of what people did with his old gods and all of that than the original source material he wrote, which is rare most of the time. The inspired by or the next step on that like aren't as good, but his writing style was very much. I don't know if it was just not for me, if it was just dated, because obviously considering when he was writing. But yeah. Anyway, well, I want to talk to you about the book that brought us here, and
Sure.
so I'm going to pause for a moment, dear listener, while I shamelessly shill for the man and get my doggo to be quiet, and then we're going to come and talk about his book.
Here comes your next romp in the graveyard. In Hunters for Hire, a new urban fantasy adventure by best-selling author Jonathan Yanez, a guy down on his luck puts sign twirling and rideshare driving on the back burner to track down the supernatural for a pretty penny. Find out what happens when John Hunter enters the secret underworld. Download your copy and start listening today. Now available on Amazon and Audible.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial overload. Yeah. Thanks for sticking with through that commercial, dear listener. We greatly appreciate it. It's talking all over my words today. I don't know what the heck was happening, but we're back. We're here to talk with Forrest about his book, The Origins, The Beginning. So we're going to throw that cover up. And first, what would you say this book was rated for people that are listening that are curious?
I mean, it's more of an adult book, but I mean, nothing a 16-year-old couldn't handle, honestly. It has some gore to it, but that's because it's about werewolves and vampires, and it's a kind of like a passion project of mine. I had a lot of fun writing it, and originally I wrote it. It wasn't actually ever planned on being published. It was just a fun little project. But yeah, I mean, pretty much anybody, because the characters themselves, I think my youngest character, she's about 17, but the two main characters, Emero and Deucalion, they're in their, like, I think Emero is in his late 20s and Deucalion's in his 30s. So they're older characters, which typically I usually don't do. I usually stick with the YA, but like I said, this book has been but again, there's gore, there's some I guess for me, but it's not like Kill Bill gore. It's just like a realistic amount of like, vampire werewolf gore. There's a little bit of like maybe if people are a little concerned about demons, because there's a few scenes with a demon who transforms, but there's nothing freaky. It's just chit chat, so I mean, yeah, anybody that's likes a good thriller.
Okay. So what would your elevator summary pitch be for this story?
Oh, it's basically my version of the why werewolves and vampires fight. It's the origin of the feud.
Okay. Where did you get the idea for this from?
That's a good question. I think one day I was just at work and I was just wandering around because it was slow, and I was like, man, I'm like, everybody taught every book's all about like the werewolves and vampires fighting, but nobody explains why. And I was like, what if I wrote a book about that? And so that's kind of what they did. Cameron was like, what if I made it up? But apparently Underworld discusses that briefly. So which is fine. But that was really inspiration. I was like, why do they fight? I want to know.
Okay. Is it a spoiler to say why they fight?
Not necessarily, no. It's essentially two brothers, god brothers, basically starting. So I guess the premise of the book, everything needs to be balanced. Like, you can't have something that's too you can't have something that's too evil or too good, because then it's kind of like not fair. And so what happens is, Emro, when his mother is dying, he seeks a way to heal her, and he discovers this demon. And then likewise, the brother of the demon decides to reach out and talk to Emero's brother and say, look, your brother did something stupid. There's the balance in the world is off now. So you are going to become something to battle him. And that's essentially, I hope that answered, did that answer the question?
It did. I mean,
Okay.
the idea of the universe needing balance is definitely not something that's unique to even speculative fiction. So, so the other brother that gets changed basically resents the brother that made it required.
Kind of. It actually goes a little deeper than that. Because I was thinking in my head, because I had this whole thing set up, and I was like, okay, we have these two brothers feuding. I get that. I was like, but how is this feud gonna last for centuries and millennia? How is this gonna happen? And that part is a spoiler. But I did something where they were both affected and both believed something different, and that's what really solidified this feud between the two of them to last for, because it's basically like I tried to make it start out as early in the world as possible, in this fantasy world, and then it's just supposed to carry on. Originally, it was supposed to be one book, and the book was just supposed to be like a boom. This is how it started, but now I've had several inspirations to make it 3. So there's gonna be 3 books. And that's gonna carry on with this feud, and it's gonna go into more of like the different versions of vampires, like how some are unaffected by the sun, and others, can others can walk in the day, and there's all sorts of there's different versions of vampires, and so I kind of want to like address some of those throughout the book series too.
So the idea that once a feud starts, it would keep going. I mean, look at the Hatfields and the McCoys. And eventually they forgot why they were even fighting. They just knew they hated each other. So that as a son of Virginia, like that doesn't even bother me to hear like, oh, that once the feud started, like, you did this to me, so I do that to you, and then eventually, like the original insult doesn't matter anymore because they just keep it going.
Right. Yeah.
Because they each got their own grievances. So how much of the original, or how much of the lore about vampires and about werewolves did you keep? So like full moon to shift, partial hybrid forms, that kind of thing. Like what does the lore for this universe look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So originally, my inspiration came from, at least mostly of the vampire, from Van Helsing, the one with Hugh Jackman, because I love that movie. That's one of my favorite movies, and I loved how the vampire looked. I loved how his final form and everything. So I based a lot of my vampire off that, but also the movie Dracula Untold. Some of the basis came from that, kind of like how the change slowly starts over time, and you kind of get special abilities here and there, and Emmer kind of discovers, oh, this is nice, like I'm really strong, or wow, I can see in the dark, or and then whereas for the werewolf, I used Teen Wolf, the TV show, to kind of start Deucalion's transformation, because he starts out as like the Wolf Man, just the classic horror, the Wolf Man. He subtly changes over time, and then till eventually he is, my version of a werewolf, which is more off the Van Helsing version.
Okay, so you used modern storytelling as inspiration.
Yeah, but actually, fun fact, I actually did do some Chat GPT, just curiosity research into the origins of werewolves and vampires and how the story started, and it was actually really fun just to learn how they got going as well. So there was probably some of that based in it too. Like I think the earliest recorded stories of vampires was like clear back in like the 1600s, and I think werewolves were about the same time. So it goes back so far, and I was actually wondering, and how this all originated, like the actual disease that started vampirism, at least the vampirism we believe in now. Actually, it was an actual disease where people, the sun would hurt them, and their faces would start to rot. So when they look in the mirror, they wouldn't recognize themselves, and so there was a lot of like the vampire disease that I was like, how did this stuff start? So that was fun too, and just looking at the historical part of vampirism.
Okay. I've seen some that they used rabies in the as an example of some of the vampiric type symptoms. And the mirror thing was because the lore with vampires in silver, and the old mirrors were silver coated to get the reflective surface behind the glass. So that way modern mirrors, a vampire potentially could see themselves because it doesn't have silver in it anymore.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I like that. That's kind of cool.
Because that's how the old mirrors were made. But I like that you kind of took a lot of the versions of the tropes and made it your own. That's very cool. Is there any that you looked at as far as like lore type tropes and said, no, we don't want to do that?
I guess, could you maybe give me an example of what you mean by that, just so I know?
Some of them, like, I don't know, the iconic one was the vampires that sparkle, or the enslaved mentally to their creator. Like if you're a vampire and you make your own vampire, they're kind of required to serve you. And some it's just tradition, and others it's a compulsion. Like thralls, for instance, isn't that right? Where they can make them half vampires, that kind of thing. Like there's lots of options.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So I guess actually I would be going into more of those in like book 2, and even book 3, because right now I basically just wanted to establish in this book like the world, first of all, a lot of the lore. Like I wanted, and my editor was really good at this. It was like, why? Like this is too much repetitive. Like I wanted people to understand how it happened, why it happened in the beginning, but then also like how it came about with these two brothers, and then kind of what caused it to continue. And one of the things I did was I used at least in the beginning, the werewolf, he is kind of like a second personality. Like eventually both the monsters and their hosts, they kind of like become almost like a split personality where they can talk to you. They can feel what you're feeling, and you can kind of like work together to kind of do something. So and then I think most of the things I did was I just kept the very traditional vampire, like not going in the sun, being able to see in the dark. Similar stuff to like Dracula Untold is what I kept. But as far as the other stuff, I'll probably do that in later books.
Okay. That sounds interesting. Did you, when this is set in a second world, so is it like what is the tech level of the world that it's in?
What's the tech level?
Yeah.
There is no tech aside from like maybe magic. Like they have like horses and yeah. I guess I would make it Viking era for me. There's no like long boats or anything, but there are long homes. There's a little bit of magic. There's 3 witches that are kind of pivotal characters, and one of the Deucalion and Emerald's sister, she's becoming a witch, but it's not like the evil witches. It's more of like the nature witches, like more like Wiccan, I guess. I think I got sidetracked. I'm sorry.
No, for the magic, is it something everybody knows about, or is it happening behind the scenes and people don't really know what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, No, it's not behind the scenes. It's a very open thing, but not a lot of people choose to use it, but they can if they want to, because the witches are the main people that use magic, at least as far as like spells and stuff like that, and Clara, who is the sister of Emerald and Deucalion. But I don't focus on the spells as much as like the effects of magic, because basically magic, you can't really control it, and so if you dive too deep, it can change you as you use it. Like for example, Emerald, he becomes, when he unlocks some of this magic, he becomes more sinister, more vampiric, and whereas Deucalion, it takes out, because it was bestowed in a different way, it was used in a different way. It actually takes what's good in him and exemplifies it and creates something ultimately powerful in a good way. So it's like the evil increased, but also the good increased, but the magic was the same. It just affected the individuals differently.
Okay. So when you say the spells, are you talking like rituals, or is like chanting and all of that, or is it coming from within?
At least as far as like, I mean, there's like a few words that they use, but otherwise, that particular magic spells and stuff wasn't the focus. At least not this book. The focus was mainly the more powerful, like godly magic. It was almost like it was forbidden magic, where like if you dive too deep, it kind of like can drive you insane. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of, it's, I guess it's more it's more based around you. Like they talk about magic like it's based around you. So you don't necessarily use spells. It's just like energy, and it just kind of just exists around you. And if you want to use it, you just need to know how. But most people just don't care to use it unless you're like a witch or something.
Well, I mean, it makes sense if there's so much of a drawback.
Yeah.
The reason I asked about the magic is because you mentioned the Vikings, so I was wondering if there was like a runic system or something.
Oh, no, actually, I thought about that, but I'm like I said, the magic wasn't the at least not that particular part of it. It wasn't the focus of it. It was more of just outlining the a different style of magic. But I have thought about it. I'm like, man, maybe I could do, because thinking of the second book, I'm like, how am I going to write? I have an idea of some of the things that are going to happen, but it's like the details. I've thought about like maybe I could do runes or something, but I guess we'll have to see.
Okay. That was just like I said, when I think Vikings and magic, I tend to think of the runic systems. So
no, that's fair.
Okay. So the cast of characters, is it just the two brothers that are feuding and their sister, the witch, or is it a huge ensemble cast?
So it's focuses on one family. So you have the mom and the dad. Tarsus is the dad, and Fiona. And then those are Emero's adopted parents, believe it or not. Emero's got a really tragic, well, basically a villain backstory, where he was born and raised in a town of barbarians, and they're ruthless. It's a desert, so they're just very hard people. And then he survives a very tragic accident, and ends up, Fiona and Tarsus end up finding him, bringing him back to their place, where he just kind of grows up with Deucalion, and soon his sister Clara is born, and it's kind of just like the focus on them and then their family, and they live kind of more in the east. So Emerald has darker skin, but like as he lives in, just because he was in the desert, but then as he grows, it kind of gave him this drive to become the best. And so his family's super supportive. Like my whole idea was like, I want to create a really awesome family unit just to destroy it. So I know it's a bit messed up, but I was like, I don't know. It was
Does
just
your
fun.
counselor read your books? I'm just asking real quick for friends.
Well, and it was cool because my editor, when she was reading, she was like, "Wow, this is such an amazing family unit," and she loved it. She goes, "Oh man," she loved how it went, and she was just like, "That was so well done." So I don't know. According to her, it's a pretty good read.
That's always a good thing. What made you decide to go with a desert? Most of the time, when people write fantasy, they like to stick with the woods and the mountains because it's comfortable.
Sorry.
I say because it's comfortable. It's what most people know.
Yeah. Well, so there is that aspect. In my world, I like a world with different climates and stuff. So in my world, you have the desert in the south, the kind of colder area in the north, and you have kind of like and then there's a bunch of forests in between. In fact, the witches, I call them the sisters. The witches live in the woods, in the forest of Kuth, and then I have the forest of Arak, which is where a lot of like marriage, I call them unity ceremonies happen. So except for mountains, I don't have any mountains, but I have just there's desert, there's colder areas, and then there's just kind of your normal foresty areas. So I have all sorts of different stuff. Just because for me, I feel like if you have one particular environment, it's kind of boring. So
No, and I get that. I'm not talking about the world building. I'm just talking about like the setting being the desert part of it is just unique. You don't see that done very often. So do you have a map that goes in this book? Because I know a lot of fantasy readers love them some maps.
I do. Yep, I made a map, and it was funny because the map was almost like the hardest part because, like I said, when I first wrote it, I didn't initially think it was going to be published. So I had to work a lot with my editor. She was like, "Wait, how far away is this? This doesn't add up. You say this place is this far away, but then you change it to this far away." And she was like, so creating a map midway through the book really helped her go, "Oh, I see now. This is where this is, and this is where this is," and it helped me keep a lot of continuity in this particular story. So I do have a map, and it really helped the story much better. It also made me have to be a bit more accountable to distance, which was fine. So
is the map included if they buy the novel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you go with the fold out option in the hardcover or the paperback, excuse me, or is it just an image? I know it's expensive to make them that way. So
yeah. Hey, I would love to do that, but no, in this particular, it's just an image, and unfortunately, it's not even in on the Kindle. It's in color, but in the book, unfortunately, it's in black and white. But I wanted it to be in color, but I didn't know how to. I couldn't control really how it printed, at least in that regard. So they wouldn't let me do that. But
I mean, I get that. I was just asking because, like I said, I find maps fascinating, but it's also fun to have them when you're reading the book to be able to reference.
Absolutely.
Did you end up putting in a glossary of like terms for people because you're adding new stuff in this one? Some fantasy novels do that, some don't.
No, because for the most part, it's pretty easy to follow. And I don't use a lot of complex terms or anything. My names are pretty simple. So no, I have like one magic word, and you can kind of infer what it means, just from the usage. I'm pretty sure my editor would have told me if I needed something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Something like I said, it depends on the complexity of like the names. Like some people feel the need to make the name so unpronounceable and unspellable that you almost need that dictionary to be able to track.
Oh yeah.
Stop everything from blending together. So
yeah.
I know, like, I don't want to go into spoiler territory. Is there anything about this book that we haven't talked about yet that you think we need to before we start bringing this to a close?
I mean, they're outside of like Emero's main family and Alien. There are a few other characters that are kind of play into the motivation for Emero to make some of his choices, because he kind of runs into there's like a 10 winters festival. So essentially it happens every 10 years, but 1 year is a winter in my world. And so he goes to that and undergoes some stuff, and but you have other side characters that kind of motivate him, but there's really nothing to nothing really super important to bring up. They're kind of side characters. I don't know if that answered the question. I guess
well, a lot of times the side characters don't know they're side characters, so
yeah.
Okay. So before we wrap this up, we talked about this in the pre-show. I think it'd be kind of cool. So if I'm going to link in the show notes the last episode you were on when we talked about the Lost Prince series. But there's been an update on that with regard. You want to break that news?
Yeah. So I actually have a narrator who's looking to do that. She's awesome. She's a new narrator. She's based out in the UK, which I love. Her accent is just amazing. So about March, she should start on it. And she is busy, being a mom and working. So I don't think the book will be done. I mean, she's hoping to get it done sooner, but by about June, she's saying when schedule-wise, if it takes that long, it would be done by June. So by June, at the longest, it should be out for audiobook, which is super exciting.
Just knowing it's in production is still, progress for people that like to read with their ears. So
yes, yeah.
Okay, so if this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book, so do your part, people. It really does make a difference. I will say, speaking of the book Origins, the beginning, there is some technical difficulties that are going on with Amazon. Sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the link works, sometimes it doesn't. So I will link to his book buy, where you can get ebook or print from him, which is just an alternate buying platform. But it is on Kindle, so if you're having issues with it, that is on Amazon and not Forrest. He cannot control what the great and mighty Zahn does. So that is available. I will link to both in case one link doesn't work and you're intrigued. You can buy it. Now, when they buy it from Book Buying, obviously, are they getting it as a PDF or are they getting it as a EPUB they can upload or sideload to their reading apps?
They would be getting it as an actual physical copy.
So they don't do ebooks on the Book Buy site.
No.
Okay.
They would. So I have the 3 books on there, and then they just pick which one they want, and then they can pay for it. And then all I would see is I would actually see their name and their email address, and it would kind of I could reach out to them if I wanted to, and so it's kind of a more personal thing, which is a lot better than Amazon.
Okay. But it is not okay. I didn't realize that about Book Buy. So if you're looking for the ebook, he's trying to work with them to get it fixed. It worked twice when I looked prep for the show, and the other 3 times it didn't. And so there's only so much you can do, and that's not a him problem. It's a them problem. So if people wanted to follow you online, where are you active on social media so they can do that?
Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, Forrest Jones. It's me with my book, is the profile picture, and then Instagram, I think it's Forrest Jones 24 is my Instagram, but I'd have to look that up. But that's about it so far. I'm not very good at social media. I definitely need to get better. And then as far as YouTube goes, I don't have a YouTube page, so. Oh, and then on my Facebook, I always post a blog, just once a week kind of a thing. So just kind of update people, talk to, kind of put something out there. Facebook is probably where I'm most active.
Okay, and we will link to all that in the show notes. You can follow us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We have got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. You can email the show at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people say the shenanigans from Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section this is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee until they get high on their own supply. If you want some of that coffee brand coffee, the link is in the show notes. The discount code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, we're going to hit the end button. Thanks for coming on, Forrest. This was fun as usual.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. Yeah.
All right. We'll have to get you back for some panels to talk about just random nerd stuff.
Okay.
All right. With that, we're gonna hit the end button, people. Wait for it.